Welcome to Crochet College. My name is Mia and today we're going to be going over how to make this really cool crochet pot holder. I actually gave the original away to my boyfriend's mother yesterday since she had us over for Thanksgiving. So I'm going to make a new one today using these two colors. I've got a nice pure white and this awesome kind of a deep green. And it is Lily's original sugar and cream yarn. So I'm really excited. To make this pattern, you can do the free version that I have available for my blog in the link down below, or I've got the paid version available on my Etsy store also down below. So let's get started. Okay, to make these pot holders, you are going to need the following supplies. I've got here 2 skeins of the Lily's Sugar and Cream 100% cotton yarn. I got one in this awesome green and one in this pure white color. I'm going to be using a size 4mm crochet hook. I like the Susan Bates hooks the best. Ooh. And then I have this really cute unfinished button and this wooden ring. Both of those are wood, as well as to hide my tails, I have a yarn needle. I like to use a metal one personally, but the plastic ones work well too. The link for all of these supplies, if you need, is down below. Okay, I'm going to start today with the back side or the back panel, and I'm going to be doing that with the pure white color, and I'm going to be working a single crochet square. So I'm starting the back panel with a 25 chain, or a chain 25, and then I'm going to work single crochets into this chain for 30 rows. So as I'm working this up, I think it's very important for me to let you know how I am doing this single crochet. I just did my first row and now I'm on to row 2. As I do this single crochet, I'm not going through the top loop or the top back loop or the top front loop. Instead, I'm going through both. So I'm pulling up through the whole single crochet stitch below it. The reason I'm doing this is I want this to have a little bit more bulk to it to make sure it's really heat proof. And if you're not using the same yarn as I am, that's fine. You just have to make sure you're using a 100% cotton yarn. Otherwise, anything with acrylic in it is going to melt when you expose it to the heat. So as long as you're using a 100% cotton yarn, you'll be good. Okay, so I just finished row 30 and now I'm going to start my border. The thing about the border is I kind of begin it almost as if I'm doing row 31. So I'll just chain 1 and turn. Now I've got my work flipped over and I'm going to just do another single crochet throughout this entire row. Okay, so I just made it to the end of my first round, or my first side of the border. And now I'm going to get ready to turn. To do this turn, I chain 1 and then rotate the work. And now I'm going to do another single crochet into that same stitch that I finished my last stitch of the side in. So I just insert my hook and I'm going to pull up a single crochet. I'm then going to do 1 single crochet in the side of every row, so that'll total to 30 single crochets for this side. Alright, so I just got to the end of the side of my work, and now I'm going to be turning again. So the way I'll do that is I will just chain 1 and rotate. So now I'm at the bottom of my initial square, or my foundation chain. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go in through that same stitch that I started in, and I am going to single crochet across the entire work. So this again is going to wind up now being 25 stitches across, just like it was on the first side. Okay, so here we are at the end of the foundation chain side, and now we just have to go up the side of our square again. So this is the sides of those stitches, and I'm going to rotate the same way I've been doing. I'm going to chain 1 and rotate, and now I'm going to work 1 single crochet into the side of all of the rows, which will total us to 30 stitches. Okay, so we've made our way to the end of this side, and now we're ready to join our first side with our final side. And the way I do that is I just chain 1, before inserting my hook in through the first stitch that we made, and then pulling up the slip knot or the slip stitch. And then I will yarn over, pull through kind of like a chain one before I grab my scissors, cut my end, and pull it tight. Now what I'm going to wind up doing is when we get the second side or the second panel going, I am going to hide all of my ends on the inside of the potholder, so I don't have to worry about weaving them in. The only end we will have to weave in is the final one, and the yarn needle does help with that because we can kind of just pull it through, or you can use a hook that's slightly smaller. Okay, so now that I've finished up the first, or rather the back side panel, I am going to get ready to do my hanger because the next thing I'm going to want to do is attach my button. So to do the hanger, I start with a slip knot, and I'm going to chain 15 plus 2. Alright, so I've got my 15, now I'm going to chain an additional 2. And that one's going to count as my first double crochet. I'm then going to reach over here, and I'm going to double crochet the whole way across. So I have my 15 double crochets. The next thing I'm going to do is just finish that off, and then we will be ready to add our hanger to our back side panel. So I'm about to attach the hanger and the button onto this back panel. I like to do it in the corner that I finished off the border in because I think it's a nice way to just kind of hide that little seam. So what I'm doing is I'm lining it up so that my needle will go through these top, or I guess kind of these two corner little stitches there. So what I'm doing is I'm putting my hanger here, and it doesn't have to be exact, and I'm going to start sewing through. So I want to kind of have my button line up right over that little hole. Thread the button, pull it through, and I like to make the X mark on the button. I'm not so worried about splitting the yarn with the needle. I think that since this is going to be hidden on the inside, it doesn't really matter, and it'll probably give it a better hold. So I just make one X through the button, perfect. So I love that look. It looks beautiful. And then I'm going to flip this to the back side, and I'll cut the long strand. But what I'll wind up doing is just tying the initial strand and the current strand that's still on the needle together. I'll usually do a triple knot, but this is all going to be hidden on the inside of the work, so I'm not worried too much about the tails or anything like that. I just have to make sure when I am securing the two sides of the potholder together that all of these are locked in there. Alright, so on this side we have this beautiful button that will latch right onto that first chain 2, which served as our double crochet. It's a nice tight hold there. And when we open up the button, we will wind up putting our ring in the hanger. I like to add the button because I think it makes it's a nice way to hide some of our imperfections from a handmade item, as well as when you wash it, you can take off this ring. So if you didn't have the button and you worked the whole thing in, you'd have to wash the ring every time, which, I mean, I'm sure you could, but it would probably get like a yellowy look to it, and I like the unfinished look of the wood. So the next thing I'm going to do is start my front panel, which is the beautiful basket weave stitch, although for this pattern I did modify it a little bit. So I'm going to go grab my green yarn and we can get started on that. I begin the front side panel the same way I began the back side panel, and that's with a chain 25. The difference is, instead of working single crochets in my first row, I'm going to work double crochets. And with my double crochets, I'm going to chain 2 and have that serve as my first double crochet. So I'm not going to use those first two that I just chained as a foundation chain, I'm going to pretend they're my first double crochet, and I'm going to reach my hook into the fourth chain from my hook and create the first real double crochet. I'm going to continue working double crochets all the way across, finishing with a total of 25 double crochets, although one of them is a fake. Okay, you guys, so I just did my row of 25 double crochets, although one of them is a fake, and I'm about to start my second row. Now this is going to be a modified basket weave stitch. So the first thing I do is I turn my work. Now I'm going to chain 2, and that's going to serve as my first double crochet. After that, I'm going to do a front post, back post situation across the row. So I'm going to start my first 4 double crochets. We'll just go front post, because why not? So my first 4 double crochets are in the front post. And then after I finish these 4 front post double crochets, I am going to switch and do back post double crochets. So I'm going to be working in increments of 5. The first one we're just pretending I did in the front row because it's a fake, or in the front post because it's a fake. And now I've done 4 front post double crochets. Time to switch and do the next 5 double crochets as back post. Okay, so I've done 5 front post, 5 back post. I'm going to switch again and do 5 more front post. I'm going to continue this front post, back post stitching across this row. Okay, I just finished this row, so now I have to, the start of this like front row, back row looking little thing. So I've got some stitches poking up, 5, 5, 5, and I have some stitches poking towards the back, 5, 5. I'm going to turn my work to start row 2, and I'm going to begin row 2 with a chain 2. Again, this is going to be my pretend double crochet. The rest are going to do front post, back post. This one will not. So whenever I see something that looks like it's scrunched up in the front, I'm going to work a back post into that. And whenever it looks like it's nice and smooth here, or it's a whole little pillow jumping forward, that's when I'm going to work a front post. So I'm going to start this side with a back post double crochet, whereas last time I started with a front post. I'm going to do the first 4 as back post double crochets before I switch. I'm going to continue doing this pattern where I'm trying to match the texture that's in the pattern before for the first 5 rows. So I'm on row 3. I'm going to do this until row 5. So I just finished off my 5th row, and now I'm getting ready to switch the direction that my front posts and back posts are going. So I'm going to flip my work and chain 2. This chain 2 is still going to serve as a pretend double crochet, so I'm not even worried about which side it's in. But now, every time I see, just for this row, every time I see a front post, I am going to turn it into a back post, or what appears like a front post. And I'm going to do that the whole way across, kind of flip-flopping. So if I see a front post, I'm going to make a back post, and if I see a back post, I'm going to make a front post. I'll keep doing this, working in 5s, so 5 front posts, then 5 back posts, across the whole row. Alrighty, so we just got to the end of our 6th row, and now I'm going to turn, chain 2, and I'm going to try to match the pattern, or the stitches before, for the next 4 rows. I'm going to continue this pattern of doing 5 front posts, 5 back posts, and trying to match that for 5 rows before I switch every 5 rows to doing it the opposite direction. I'm going to do this until I have 20 rows total, or it'll wind up being 4 switches. Alright, so I just got to the end of my 20th row. I did this 5 rows, then switch, 5 rows, then switch, front post, back post, to make a string of 5 sets of these woven pieces. So what I want to show you now is I'm going to begin my border. To do this, I am going to turn my work, and I'm going to work a single crochet into each of the double crochets from the last row, from row 20. So what I'm doing here is I like to chain 1 whenever I do a single crochet. So I've got my single crochet up here, and now I'm going to work through the tops of these stitches, the same way we did the border on the previous side panel or back panel. So I go through those 2 loops and pull up a single crochet. I am going to do this for the whole row, making a total of 25 single crochets. Alright, so I'm at the end of my row now of single crochets on the border, and I'm getting ready to rotate the work for the border. To rotate, I'm going to begin by chaining 1. I'm then going to chain 1 into that same corner stitch that I already did, except instead of being at the top of the stitch, I am going to go into the post. And I'm going to treat these rows the same way I would treat a half double crochet, in being that every 2 rows I should have 3 single crochets to make the border. The only difference is when I do single crochets around a half double crochet border, I usually do 3 into one row, skip a row, 3 into the next row. For this one, I'm going to work a pattern of 2 single crochets, 1 single crochet. 2 single crochets, 1 single crochet, all the way down the row until I have 30 stitches total. So here I am after doing the entire side of this basket weave panel. So I've done alternating between 2 single crochets and 1 single crochet across every row until I made it to the end. When I make it here, all I'm going to do is chain 1, and rotate my work, and then I'm going to start working in the foundation chains of all of my stitches. So I like to do that by just going through the same way that I would have, so I like to go through the same way that I would have to build the stitches. So I usually go right through the bottom of this chain. And I'm going to do 1 single crochet in each of these stitches across, totaling in 25 single crochets across this side. I've arrived at the corner again, which now I'm just going to chain 1, turn my work, or rotate it, and then I'm going to start by working 2 single crochets into the side of the row, and then I'll alternate between 2, 1, 2, 1 single crochets all the way up the side of the work until I get to the top where I can join. Here I have 30 stitches going across the side of this panel. The next thing I'm going to do is chain 1 and join into that first stitch that I made when beginning my border. So now that I'm all joined up, I'm just going to finish off my work. And this tail will get hidden on the inside of the potholder. The very last thing we have to do for this project to be considered done is we're going to have to slip stitch the 2 panels together. Alright, so we've arrived at the last step. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to lay the front panel right on top of the back panel, making sure to hide all of these tails that I don't want in there, or really that I don't want to show. So I'm hiding those, and I'm going to start, really I could start anywhere along the edge. I don't want to start in that corner. The only reason is I want it to look nice and smooth when we get to that part where we have to go through the hanger and the back stitch. So I'm probably going to start in this other top corner here. And instead of starting at the actual corner, I'll make sure to start not in the chain 1, but in the first chain of the round. So I make sure to get through both of those stitches. I like to do this so that there are 4 loops at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm really right through the top of the stitches. I'm going to go in with the white to make a beautiful embellishment up at the top of the work. And I'm just going to slip stitch across. So the way I do that is I'm going to pull up a loop. I'm going to then go into the next stitch, and I'm going to save that tail for the very end. I usually like to hide those two together with the final tail, and then I'm going to pull up another loop in the next one. So I'm working stitch by stitch to connect the top 25 stitches together. And it makes this beautiful little sandwich right here. Alright, so we've arrived at this little corner with the hanger. I took the ring out of the hanger and unbuttoned it for a quick second here, just so I can make sure that I get through the correct loops. I'm going to just kind of hide the hanger in there as I work through it. I want to get through these same 2 stitches here, jump into the next stitch, and now I'll kind of go through the hanger just to get right into the top stitch here. Alright, now I've got the corner stitch, so we've got to get that same corner stitch. I'll go through the hanger again, and then I'll get up through here. If you can see that good. There we go. And I'll slip stitch right through, and then I'll go to the next stitch, which is the first stitch on this side panel here. There we go. So I just did those 3 in the corner, those 3 in the corner on this side. After you get through the hanger, if you wanted to, you could put that little loop back on. I'm just going to leave it off until the end. So I always want to make sure that any tails are hidden in there. You'll start to notice that your width might be a little different, the back panel being a little bit bigger, and that's mostly because the single crochet is already flat, while the basket weave is all crunched in together. So what will wind up happening is you could block your work to make it equal the same size, or I never really block it. I just kind of let it wear itself out and it eventually evens out. But at first you might have more of like a rectangle that's kind of pulling itself in the middle, but with time it'll loosen up. So I'm just going to do the exact same thing I did on the top right here. I'm going to work in 1 slip stitch into each of the 30, well I guess now I have 29 left, 29 more stitches across this side. Okay, so I just finished slip stitching through this side. I'm going to continue to do the last 2 sides of my work before I can hide my last tail and call this project finished. Okay, so I'm at my last corner and I am ready to join. So to do this join, I just yarn over and pull through my 1 extra spot that I kind of have left there. And then on this side, you'll see that I kind of have 2 tails. So what I do is I will cut the long tail first, and then go through this same stitch again, this time just pulling up my tail to kind of do that finishing off. So I'm all locked in there. On this side, I will grab usually I do a smaller one, but I don't feel like getting up. So I got this crochet hook. I'll just go through and pull my tail on the inside of my work, so it's nice and hidden in there. Oh, I didn't even catch that on camera. And then I will do the same thing on this side. I'll go through the inside here, pull my crochet hook through, and then pull her down. And then I am left with my finished pot holder. So I'll button this back up and I'll put my ring in. I love it. I'm excited. I think the green and the white go well together. So like I said, you can block this out so you don't have this kind of like rectangle that's pulling in on itself. It really isn't that bad because the math adds up. It's just a matter of making sure that your stitches are pretty even, you're not going too tight as you're going across. But it will relax itself, or if you wanted to like spray it and pin it out like a lot of people do to block it, that's one thing to do. I usually just let the fabric do its thing. I hope you enjoyed crocheting this amazing pot holder with me. I love the effect it gets. So I hope you enjoyed crocheting this awesome pot holder with me. I love the basket weave stitch here. I think it is beautiful. And I still have some yarn left over. I didn't use the full two skeins that I started with, but if I were going to make 2 sets, I would definitely need another skein of each of these, which is okay because these go for $1.99 by me. So 2 pot holders for, what is that, $5 or $8? That's awesome. So I really do hope you enjoyed making this project with me. Please send me the pictures of the ones you make. I'm really excited to see them. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!